Welcome. I'm Kevin Miller. This is a podcast for your personal evolution. In this episode, the force continuum of believing in yourself. I feel we're experiencing a schizophrenic time in our culture where we adamantly believe in our opinions and our perspectives, but we have very little true belief in ourselves. We're increasingly insecure and fragile and thus offended and threatened by, it seems, everything. People seem scared of other people, and I'm concerned it belies an innate fear of ourselves as well. I grew up entrenched in the Christian Bible. One of the key verses was to love your neighbor as you love yourself. Well, it doesn't really work if you don't, in fact, love yourself. So can we loathe ourselves and really love anyone authentically? So in this podcast, I sit down with Dr. Wendi Zimmer. Wendi is a #1 bestselling author, a mindset expert. She's professor at Texas A&M University. She's an educational consultant and the owner of Learning Engaged. Well, as you're about to hear, Wendi has her own story of struggling with imposter syndrome and self-doubt for so many years, not believing in herself. She ultimately developed a system to shift her mindset through this concept of self-belief and now spends her time guiding others to do the same. She's got a new book. It's titled Force Continuum: How to Shift Your Mindset to Transform Your Life. A main structure that you're going to hear us walk and talk through is #1, mindset. Answering the question, what do you want to believe about yourself? #2, identity. How do you want to be seen by others? #3, habits then. What do you need to do to get what you want? And then 4, energy. What do you want to spend your time doing? I felt it was just a very practical construct on auditing the key areas of your life, things you do want to pursue, and tactfully addressing the mindset that we have in going forth with, again, this foundation of core belief in oneself. So coming up next, my conversation with Dr. Wendi Zimmer and this concept of force continuum and how to increase your belief in yourself. Let's evolve ourselves today. Wendi, when your book came across my desk and this concept of how we believe in ourselves, the term of belief in and of itself is of high interest to me. And then our belief in ourselves, I mean, it's an elementary statement. And yet, as you well know, with our culture right now in mental health, we seem to be at the complete lack or the lesser of believing in ourselves than ever. So I knew it was a topic I wanted to talk about, and I appreciate you being here with us today.
Thank you, Kevin. I am blessed to be here. I cannot wait to get started with our conversation. I love that our topics align. So thank you for having me.
They do align. I love the term resonance lately, and I resonate with you, with the book, with the stories, with the concepts. And I'm going to start off just kind of big picture, 10,000 feet. I think this is right out of the book. You wrote, we must learn how to believe in ourselves, to take action and use our force to break down the barriers that hold us back from achieving more. Believing in yourself is the concept, and this book is the tool to get you there. So just that, believing in ourselves. I mean, folks who listen to this podcast, listen to other podcasts in personal development and self-help and self-improvement and all those terms. Spirituality, psychology, and the concept of believing in ourselves is so commonplace, that term, that I think we miss it. And I appreciate the perspective that you come at it with. But I want to start off again just with kind of magnifying that if I step back, if I'm an alien that comes to planet Earth and I look back and I step around and I read the headlines and I read social media and I look at people and I look at their demeanor and their faces and their smiles or lacks thereof and yada, yada, I think I would say, I don't know that these people believe in themselves that much. We could say happy, and they don't seem happy, but I would say that's a result of our lack of belief in ourselves. So when you look at that, do you muse on why? What has brought us to this place?
I do. I 100% do. And I agree with you. I think the word belief or self-belief or however you want to frame it has become so common in our like day-to-day vernacular that we just skim over it. We absolutely skim over it. And we're taught from an early age, like, you should believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. Just believe in yourself. Like, believe you can do it and you will make it happen. And all of these, one-liners that people drop about belief. But the greater issue, I think, is by just making these blanket statements, we almost decrease our self-belief, because we get in this mindset of, well, I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to believe in myself because it'll make me happy. And no one's going to believe in me if I don't believe in myself, and all of these pieces. And so it actually is counterintuitive. But the adverse of that is no one actually teaches us how. People are great at telling us we should, but very few people teach us how. And so to your fantastic alien example, I think that's part of it is we don't know how to do it. So we just put it off to the side of one day I'll be happy enough and one day I'll achieve enough to believe in myself. And that day is not today. So I'm just going to continue to check the boxes and, navigate through day-to-day life. And it's complicated that we've got to this place, but it's also just a part of, I think, our culture now with social media and everything we have going on of we say a whole lot without really saying anything of substance or value. And so our words don't mean what they used to mean. We don't value them the way we used to.
Okay, let me come at it this way with you too. When we talk about believing in self, as I was reviewing and researching in your book, I thought, I'm fishing for something that I know what I think. I don't feel like we know what a self is. What is my self? And we're going to get into it in just a second here, but I know one of your key areas is what overlaps directly with mine is identity. Mm-hmm. And so for myself, I have, who is myself? It was my identity that was attached to all these things that I do. That was it. And so if it's just in relation to what I do, then it seems pretty obvious what I am or what I'm not. And so kind of coming back to believing in myself, then that's believing in what I do or what I've done or what I haven't done. And I think we're missing the point. Give me your perspective on how you see the self in that concept.
No, absolutely. Because too often I think we craft our identity around either what society or our environment or culture has said our identity should be. And sometimes that's tied to our roles. Like, I'm a mother and I'm a daughter and I'm a professor, and there's roles that are tied to that. And so we think about, well, that's my identity. I identify as a mother. I identify as a professor. I identify as whatever that looks like. And we get wrapped up in that piece of, well, that's who I'm supposed to be. That's what I'm supposed to present myself as. And don't ever take a moment to stop and pause and go, well, who do I want to be? And that's what, there's actually a ton of research out there, Kevin. If you look at athletes, or you look at celebrities, and you look at people that have had these massive public identities, and when that changes, when a celebrity, decides to walk away, or when a huge athlete gets injured and no longer plays, or whatever that looks like, the depression they can go through and the withdrawals they can go through, because it's like, I identified as this person for so long. And now that I don't have that piece, that role, that title, I don't know who I am anymore. And so you're completely right. When we connect, we think about believing in yourself. If you haven't stopped to pause and think about, who do I want to be? Not who do other people say I am, but who do I want to be? How do I want to be seen, separated from all of those things? That is a big core piece of believing in yourself. Because if you don't know who you are and who you want to be, then what are you believing in? You're believing an idea that was probably crafted for you from a young age, and then is just confirmed as we get older.
I've been playing, Wendi, with the term identity concept. What is my identity concept? Because I look at it and I don't see it anymore as a fixed thing. My identity continues to evolve, and I want it to evolve as I learn more and reveal more and discover more. And so yet, what is my identity? And you actually speak to it in the book in a way that I've been thinking of it, but haven't really seen it. And it's kind of who I am identifying with. It's an ongoing active, like a verb. Today I am identifying a certain way. Now, I may figure I'm probably going to tomorrow. I've always been an athlete. I enjoy being an athlete. Tomorrow, I'm probably going to be an athlete. And I'm identifying as that, but is that my identity? And it was, you speak to that. I mean, I was a pro athlete and that's what I was. And when I left that, I still just held on to it for a long time. And then I abandoned it at some point, and just in my own ignorance, I guess. And I look at that. Okay, so we're going to come back to identity because that's one of your, that's one of your key points. So I'm going to come back to that. But let's go to force now. And I appreciate that in the book you address that term may be a little difficult for some people. Force.
Yes.
Okay, so I appreciate your story. You identify with being an introvert, as do I, and a people pleaser.
Right.
And that was, we just did a show recently with Dr. Ingrid Clayton on her new book, Fawning. And I resonated with that so much. People pleaser, and I even changed that to appease. I appease people so that I can have peace and, feel the way that I want to feel. And so you did not take that aspect of yourself and then flip-flop it and become, Miss Powerhouse authority figure. So define force for us.
Absolutely. So I define force as essentially the aspects that you already have inside you that you need to tap into to then, again, have the mindset you want to have, be the person that you want to be. I use a lot with my clients and my students the idea of unseen belief, because all of us are here because of the things that have led us here. We've been successful. We've seen failures, but we've been successful. We've taken risks. We've done things in our lives that we were unsure of, that maybe we weren't confident of. And yes, to varying levels of success, but we have. But we forget that. We forget that without all of that belief that we've had up to this point, we wouldn't be where we are. We would cease to exist, because you would essentially, and there are people who really struggle with leaving the house and really struggle with taking risks. But for many of us, it's like, I just disregard all of those things and forget that I'm a fully functioning adult, fully functioning person. And it's because of all of that belief I've had along the way. And that's where the unseen piece comes in, because we don't give ourselves credit for any of that. We're just like, well, that was a thing, and now I don't believe in myself because there's no way I can do this. Well, how do you say there's no way you can do this? You've already done so many things leading up to this point. And so the force aspect of it truly is, and it can be larger than life. I'm screaming affirmations to myself in the mirror. Like, that totally can be you. But for me, and for many of the people I work with, it's more like tapping into the things that you already do well, tapping into the successes that you've had, the failures that you've learned from, tapping into all of those pieces in your life that have gotten you to where you are today, that is completely unique to you. Like, my story, Kevin, is completely different than yours, even though we have some overlaps, right? And then realizing that is the force that I already have to do what I want to do, to take action. I just have to actually utilize it. And it will look different for me than it will for you, but recognizing that it doesn't have to be this larger than life experience, this larger than life, like, look at me, I'm going to walk into a room and command presence and be obnoxious and other things that people kind of associate with being a force. And it's actually just something that we are already blessed and gifted with. And going back to what I said before, it's just someone needs to tell us how. We need support and guidance to recognize that we already have that force inside of us.
Okay, I really like that, Wendi, because as I have been thinking about myself in relation to your message, I would say my growing force has actually been quieter than I was, in that I don't feel the need to impress myself upon a group. Or even my family to some degree. And I'm okay letting them be them and letting me be me. And kind of brings me into the boundaries concept, me realizing and being authentic to myself and who I am, continue to learn who and how I want to be. I am almost quieter in that aspect. I'm more at peace And yeah, there are boundaries. And if I don't want to do that and it doesn't resonate, I just say, gosh, good on you, but I'm not going to. As opposed to past Kevin, which was like, yes, man. It was that aspect. So, and you even in the book, I know you gave some famous figures of people who seem like, out there. We could even look here at the self in this, if we put us in the self-help category right here, at some of these big personalities and these forceful people and the, strength kind of concept. And then there are some who are very quiet. Matter of fact, I just thought of Susan Cain, with her book Quiet on introverts. And I look at her as very powerful, I would say, in that aspect of force, but very quiet. She's not looking to impress herself on somebody else. And yet she attracts people by the droves because they feel that, let's call it the energy in her, right?
Absolutely. And she adds value. And I think that's a piece of it too, Kevin, as we talk about this belief aspect, because most of us, if you really think about what we truly want in life, the successes, goals we set for ourselves, and whether that's really, I say truly, that changes all the time based upon who we are and multiple factors. But most people, when you talk to most people, they want a life that fulfills them. And fulfillment comes from adding value. So if that's adding value to your family, if that's adding value to your job, if that's adding value to the people that you engage with on a daily basis, whatever that looks like. And that adding value piece does not have to be loud. It doesn't have to be, and many times it is quiet because it's something that you're doing because you want to do it, not because you're getting accolades, not because you're out there putting yourself in front of everyone, like, look at all the amazing things that I'm doing. Many people, when it truly comes down to adding value and making a difference, it is quiet because it touches a different part of them. And I talk a lot lately on, we tie so much of this to productivity. I want to be productive. I want to make sure that I get this done or I get this done and I don't get to the end of my life and regret all of these things and what that looks like. But productivity, and it's defined in many different ways, but productivity for me and a lot of the research really is tied to adding value. So it all kind of comes back to we want to have these to-do lists and we want to have these checkboxes and we want to have all of these ways to prove, like, look at my life and look at my life being successful. But if it ties back to productivity really is how you add value. And adding value comes from believing in yourself and your ability to, impact others. Then it's this cycle that we live in, that without belief, it's going to be harder to add value. Without belief, it's going to be harder to use, the gifts that you have been given to impact others. Because to your mention of boundaries, which I love that you brought that up, because boundaries are a big piece of it, of setting those boundaries so that you can actually use your energy in your life that's aligned with what you want, as opposed to what you think someone feels you should do, back to your identity, or what you have always been accustomed to doing. And so there's so much self-reflection in belief because it's complex. It sounds so simple. You're like, just believe in yourself. But I love that you use the example because the book Quiet is a beautiful, beautiful representation of adding value and being the person you want to be without having to be this larger than life presence personality.
Okay, the adding value piece I like and I resonate with a lot. My focus in I'm so tempted to say my vocation, but I don't separate that, probably like you, from my life, is inner security, and with a focus on identity and a secure identity. So if we take this believing in self and your aspect of adding value, if I think about my kids, I think the greatest, I'm testifying that I have seen me adding more value to their life as I have become just more secure inside. I don't have a big need from them emotionally. I mean, of course, I want them and desire them, but I don't have a need. I don't need to convince them. I don't need to prove myself anymore by doing everything and being the hero dad and whatnot. And as I have done that, and I can just be with them, I I was going to say I perceive, but I've had testimony from them. I am bringing them more value than ever by believing in self. So I like that because I can see, and I know especially some of my faith-based folks, are going to take this believing in self, danger, danger, danger. It's all the God and whatever. However, and if you want to put that towards a higher power and your faith and your security and inner security belief, okay. But if it comes down to you being at peace, I just see that as the greatest value I can give to anyone. And if I flip it and go, do I want to hang out with Wendi? And if she is anxious, if she's depressed, if she's angry, if she's needy, even if she's just high power, gung ho, conquer the world, there's not really space for me. It's when you're sitting there like you are now with a smile on your face, curious. And I feel like, I feel resonance. I feel that you believing in yourself is a gift to me and our relationship. Yeah.
Well, and absolutely. And to be honest, Kevin, like the fact that you are, like you said, you believe in yourself more, which adds more value to your kids, makes you a hero in their eyes, because it's a different type of hero, but in all reality, it's the hero we all need. It's easy I can find heroes anywhere, right? It's easy to look out and be like, and I don't know if hero is the right term for people I don't know, or, role models I've never met, because they tell you don't ever meet your role model, right? So, but I can find those heroes to look up to everywhere, but the true hero that's going to really make a difference in my life you're a perfect example of that for your kids, because you're present. And, back to your, connection to a higher being or to God, if you look at faith and belief, one of the key things that we're supposed to do in this world is love others. Love others. And you cannot love others if you don't love yourself. You just can't. It is almost impossible, because you're so worried about who you are, and you're so worried about adhering to this arbitrary set of guidelines or criteria that you are not serving others well. You are not loving others well. And that is not why we were put on this planet. We were not put on this planet to just exist and truly just make it, glide through life. We were put here to impact others. And so it has to start with us in order for us to love others and make, the impact that we were designed to make.
Well, you just said it, and coming from my background, I just looked up the scripture. It's Mark in the Bible. Mark 12:30 is the love your neighbor as yourself. And I continue in our current culture to think, well, that's pretty lame, because most people I don't think love themselves. They're if anything, they're incredibly insecure if not in dislike or even hate of themselves. So they got nothing to give their neighbor. So back to that. So for my faith-based folks, there you go. There it is in scripture. You know it. And
Absolutely.
If you are not believing in yourself, and it could be as unto God, then what do you have to give others? So a great appreciation for you, not just giving a concept, but giving the structure to it. And you have these 4 areas. We've touched on one, but number 1, mindset. Number 2, identity. Number 3, habits. And number 4, energy. Now, as I say those terms, again, those are not new terms to anyone, but those are in a structure for this, from Wendi, from your standpoint, for this concept of believing in self and what that equates to as your personal force. So in that, I want to look at each one. And these are some things I pulled, again, right out of your book, Mindset. And you wrote, what do you want to believe about yourself? And you said, I define mindset as the attitudes and actions we take to believe in ourselves.
Yes.
But that first question, what do we want to believe about ourselves? That is the actual mindset. Tell me more. I really I'm so tempted to jump down, because I think it's I've got it down here, chapter 4, and you gave us some examples. You gave Disney, Beyonce, yourself. And I like that too. So I don't know if we want to intermingle that even as we start here. I'll say it. So you talked about Walt Disney, who was, if people know that story, he was, didn't knock it out of the woods right away, but his mindset is he wanted to believe that his initial failure was an opportunity. Beyonce in her story. She wanted to believe she was able to achieve success. You said, I believed I could be strong and an advocate. So if we look at our identity, what do I want to, which we're going to get to in a second, identity specifically, what do I want my mindset to be? I don't think that we look at it, or is that your experience, that we don't look at it as something that we have control over? Is that the
Absolutely.
biggest error?
No, absolutely. And it's funny, Kevin, I love, because sometimes when I talk about this, I have a hard time separating the four because they're so intertwined and it's difficult to have one without the other. So I always love when I talk to someone and they're like, I keep jumping to here and here because it just reconfirms what I found in my life. Like, you can't have one without the other. But, from a mindset perspective, mindset, again, is one of those terms, right? And there's beautiful research on mindset. Carol Dweck has done fabulous work on growth and fixed mindsets. And there's so much conversation around that. But again, I think it's just become normal language and we don't actually stop to think about, because again, we're told, oh, you need to have a growth mindset. Oh, you need to have a positive mindset. Oh, and people forget that the mindset piece of it. And that's why I framed my own definition, because I was like, we've got to have an action component to this. It can't just be like, well, I'm going to go around life and always think happy and positive, because that's not realistic and it's toxic positivity and it's not what we're directing for. But it truly is, again, that reflection piece of stopping and thinking about what does this look like for me? How do I want to believe in myself? And then the alignment that is with who I am and what I want and my background and experiences that have come up to here. Because, in true alignment with force, I don't have to be. And that's why I love that example of Beyonce and Walt Disney, because both of them, we look at them now and they're this true force of nature, right? Both of them have made massive, massive impact. But, Beyonce talks about her alter ego because being that larger than life presence, she knew it needed to happen for what she wanted to do, but it wasn't naturally who she was. And then Walt Disney, failure after failure after failure, and was like, I don't need all of this. I'm going to go build Walt Disney World. Y'all do what you want to do. I'm going to go do me. And also made a massive impact, but truly just from his own personality, his own self. And so instead of looking at it like, well, do I have a growth mindset? Do I have a fixed mindset? Do I have a positive mindset? Do I have a negative mindset? Really thinking about, what do I need in this moment? Because there are times where it's like, you know what? I'm exhausted and I can't have a positive mindset. I need to look at this realistically of where I am and where I want to be, and I will get there. I need to get there. I need to take action to have the mindset that's going to serve me well, that's going to allow me to see myself and believe in myself the way that I want to. But it's not a light switch. I can't just immediately be like, oh, and I've started, it's not my term. I heard it and I have tried to figure out exactly who it belongs to. And one day I'm going to figure it out. But the concept of a mindset metabolism, we talk about our body metabolism all the time, and it's what you put into your body and then how your body expends that energy. And I'm like, we have a mindset metabolism. Because we've got to think about not only, and this is where it ties into energy, so it's hard for me to separate it sometimes, but the energy that we take in, where you get your energy from, but then also what that looks like on the other end. Are you training your brain? Are you intentionally going through the process of thinking positively about yourself? Even if you don't believe that about yourself right now, what are you saying? How are you talking to yourself? What is your inner dialogue? And it's this constant loop and this constant conversation, because it's not going to shift tomorrow. You can't just wake up and be like, oh, now my mindset is set and I never have to work on it again. I have to work on my mindset every day, no matter what. So it's helping us frame mindset differently than just like our brain and this thing that lives in our head that we don't really do anything with, but it's the practice of training our brain every single day to think about how we want to believe in ourselves, and then essentially how that ties to adding value in our lives and to others' lives.
Well, again, I like the active aspect of how you frame it. What do I want to believe about myself? First off, obviously just being aware of that. How many people have never audited that? How long did I go without ever auditing that question? Go, what do I want to believe about myself? Okay, let me get clear on that. And then be aware of the next moment. And I realize, ooh, I just veered off that path. I'm not feeling that mindset. And I get to come back to it. Or maybe I need to go over here and, work on something when I realize that I veered off of it. And let's say you talk about, I like the term, you use continuum a lot. I use the term spectrum a lot, but continuum, that's a little more elegant, actually. I like that. But that it's a moving thing that we get to be aware of and that we can influence according to, as you're showcasing, the belief that we consciously want to adopt. Yeah.
And recognizing it's a process. And that's where I like the continuum concept as well, because there's so much shame around self-belief and around identity and around our own personal just aspects of our life. And my students pick on me all the time because they'll be like, I'm should. I'm like, don't use the word should. Yeah. Should equals shame. We don't use the word should because there's so much of like, well, I should feel this way about myself, or I should believe this, or I should. But regardless, it's thinking about like where you are is where you are. And everything up to this point has gotten you there. And so many of those things are huge and should be celebrated. And you can't do anything about them anyway, right? They're in the past and you can't do anything about that. But recognizing how they have formed you into who you are today and where you are is worth being celebrated, and you will continue to grow. And so it doesn't matter which end of the continuum you're on. There may be times where you're like, this was a really bad day. And a lot of things went really well. And went really poorly, and I spoke to myself terribly. And I am way down here, but maybe I needed that today. I needed that reset. I needed that moment of like, stop beating yourself up, stop, whatever that looks like. Because if we always lived on this end where everything is happy and everything's roses and rainbows and butterflies, then we would actually be lying to ourselves because we wouldn't grow and learn as a result of the times in our life that aren't exactly the way we want them to be. And so I also always use spectrum, but I was like, what is something that can take away a little bit of that shame around who we should be, especially as adults? Because people expect us, well, you should be over this by now, right? Like your time to be insecure and lack self-belief was like when you were dealing with hormones or high school or college and all that. Now you're an adult and you're responsible and you should have gotten past all of that. And that's not true. It's such a lie that we tell ourselves and that other people tell us as well. And so it was something that I literally I was talking to a client one day and she was beating herself up about, I should be here. And I was like, stop. There are so many levels of what this looks like and so many layers of what this looks like, and it's going to change every day. I'm like, it's like a continuum. And she's like, oh, that makes complete sense. And I'm like, awesome. And so that's kind of where that idea conceptualized out of.
I like that. Looking at the should, that's been a family thing for a long time. Don't should on me or don't should on yourself. But changing it, I like to change it to I aspire to, because it also helped me then look at that should, changing it to I aspire. Sometimes showed me when I tried to say that, I aspire. No, I don't. It made it clear, to reframe that. And you said something earlier, and I thought too, if I looked at literally my mindset overall, I would say, what do I want to believe about myself? Historically, I would say, I want to be positive and optimistic. And yet there's times now that I look back and go, well, I shouldn't say I look back, but now I look at it and go, maybe I don't need to be so positive and optimistic right now. Maybe I need to be a little real on what's happening and take the gravity of this. Makes me think of Dan Pink and The Power of Regret. Sometimes I need to stop and not be so positive. So again, an active, influenceable mindset, but that I'm primarily aware of what my rudder is, what my direction is, that I can come back to if I need to. Well, the second part then, So again, I'm going to repeat it. Number one, mindset. What do you want to believe about yourself? So number two, Wendy, you've got identity. How do you want to be seen? And you further, I think I kind of paraphrased, how do you choose to identify? What do you choose to identify with, or not? But how do you want to be seen? So speak to that, because that feels, gosh, that feels, what would be the word? That's a volatile aspect, identity these days. When we look at social media and we look at that and how do we want to be seen, I think there's a lot of concern that we all have about what we do and to be how we're perceived. So frame it differently, because as I read your message, it feels like this is more of an internal thing, almost an outside of what people know about me. If I'm secure, believe in myself, I don't have needs, but I do want to be seen in a certain way for a certain purpose. You want to be seen as somebody who knows this, has expertise in this, has credibility. You're a teacher and you need that. So there is a healthy, maybe that's it, a healthy how do you want to be seen, and an unhealthy how do you want to be seen. Help me out.
No, absolutely. And there's honestly kind of two aspects to this, because there's the way I want to see myself when I'm trying to be the person that I feel like I'm designed to be, the way I want to see me. But then there's also the way I want other people to see me. So there's obviously both layers. And you're right. I do want people to see me as an expert. I want people to see me as, caring and competent. I want my students, when I walk into the classroom, to be like, this person cares about learning and cares about me and knows what she's talking about. And, there are aspects to that. Absolutely. And we have to be careful, because again, that reflection piece, really stopping and thinking about where is my identity coming from? And I said, don't look back at the past, but this is a time where it can be helpful. Why? Like right now, if I want to be seen as, say, for example, if I take my people-pleasing tendencies, if I think I want to be seen as someone who is always positive, who goes out of her way for everybody, who never says no, who, will take risks and will do all of these things to whatever that looks like, right? Because that can easily be default for me. But then taking the time and stop and going, is that really how I want to be seen? Or is that what I think people expect of me? Or is that what I think because that's what I've always done from when I was a child, that if I don't do those things, that people aren't going to like me, or I'm going to be seen as incompetent or unkind or whatever that looks like. And having intentionality behind that, because to your point, it is a healthy identity. Now, there's obviously the other end of the spectrum where people could say, I want to be seen as, I don't want to be seen as kind. I don't want to be seen as this. And I don't think deep down that's actually true. I think that's a coping strategy or result of trauma, past trauma and things that you're dealing with. But starting on that reflection, because recognizing that if you're always trying to achieve what someone else wants you to be, then it's never going to be your identity, and it's never going to be something that you're happy with. So I can give you an example from my own life. I'm better now, but I've had many times in my life where I was so focused on trying to be the friend that I thought someone else wanted me to be, and going out of my way to be like this certain friend, that I pushed people away. And I was so hurt, because it was like, I'm always the one that volunteers first. I'm always the one that helps you. I'm always the one that this, that, and whatever. But deep down, I was trying to be the person I thought they wanted me to be. That's not actually who they wanted me to be. And so I wasn't being a good friend. Or another example from my life about, being a mom, I try really hard not to push my people-pleasing tendencies on my daughter, because it's very easy, because that's my default. It's very easy for me to try to be like, okay, and I don't use the word identity with her, right? But this is how you be a kind person. This is how you are, a strong person. And then recognizing that's not who she is. That's who I'm pushing on her to be. Now, obviously, I need to teach her how to be a good human and a contributing citizen of society and those pieces. So recognizing first is the way that you're, reflecting on or connecting to your identity really who you want, or is it what you expect people, or you think people expect from you? And that's a whole whole process in itself, because many of us don't know. We've lived that identity for so long that we don't actually know what that looks like. And it takes some deep self-reflection to recognize that I actually don't want to be seen that way, or I want to be seen as someone who can say no and it's okay, and I can put up boundaries, and I don't have to go out of my way to prove to everyone that I'm okay. And so that's where, and I think, Kevin, just the little time we've spent together, I think that maybe a piece of where identity is intriguing to you as well, because it's so complex, because you can't just be like, well, here, write out a graphic, draw some lines of like, I want to be seen as kind and caring and smart, and all of those aspects to it. And so that's the piece. It's focusing on how you want to see yourself, but then how you want others to see you, keeping in mind that your mindset plays a big piece in this. Because if you don't have the mindset of you're someone that deserves to set boundaries, you're someone that is worthy of using their voice, is someone who deserves to be able to take risks and fail, and it's okay if people see you doing that, then it's hard for you to craft an identity, because your mindset is not one of such where you're at a place where you can be the person you want to be.
Yeah, my story has, I think, significant, I would call it a very acute ignorance about my identity. And I wrote it down, so often we're doing something, being something in a way that we think the other person wants, or we think that, we want in regards to that person, and they don't. And it was acute for me, Wendi, and especially with my family, that I'm the hero, the fixer, the Superman. I take care of everything, no limits, no excuses. And it took me some stark instances of realizing. I had a daughter one time. She was just sharing something, a problem she was having, and she's like, Dad, don't do anything about it. Don't fix it, because then I won't learn. I was like, oh my gosh. And in other instances where I realized I'm doing something for somebody that they did not ask for, I don't even know if they want. And meanwhile, I'm actually I'm exhausted and I'm bitter about it.
Yes.
And it's just me. It's me about me. This is talk about me. And it wasn't about them. And I didn't know it. I was so blind to it that it took some consequences for me to see that. So back to identity. Oh gosh, I did want to say too, not long ago we had Bob Rosen on the show, and his new book is Detached. And in it, he shared, it was just a personal story, and that he said, maybe somebody shared it with him, but it was a question of, how would you want people to talk about you when you leave a party? I was interested in that because it wasn't a family gathering where everybody knows you. It wasn't close friends necessarily. It was a party where, it's just some acquaintances and whatever. How do you want to be, back to identity, how do you want to be seen? And he realized that he had been functioning unaware, unconscious of it, that he wanted to be seen as smart. That was his identity, unconscious. So now that he's faced with your question, okay, how do you want to be seen, and why? What's really behind that? He'd go, gosh, apparently I want to be seen as smart. What's with that? Maybe I got some security or insecurity, issues going on here. And what do I really want to? That doesn't help that person. That's all about me. If it's about them, back to your adding value. If I'm adding value, then wouldn't I want to be seen as, gosh, I experienced Bob as somebody who really cares about me, or yada, yada. And it changes the paradigm. That's why I like your structure here of asking these questions. And I actually have something I want to lead up to here. So let me get to the next one. Habits. That's your next one, the third one. And you said, what do you need to do then to get what you want? Now that you've done mindset, what do you want to believe about yourself? You've done identity. How do you want to be seen? Now, what do you need to do to have those things come to fruition? In essence, is that fair?
Yes, absolutely. Because that's the action piece. I can sit here and talk about this all day long, and we do. And just even in side conversations, like I've had conversations with people that don't exactly know what I research, or don't, know exactly what I do for a living. And they'll be like, I know. I need to have a more positive mindset, right? Like we spout these things off, and maybe they honestly do believe that, but when you dig into people and you ask them, like, fantastic, well, what are you doing as a result? Like, what are you doing to work toward that? What are you doing? And they just kind of look at you. And at least in my experience, they just kind of look at you of like, what do you mean? What am I doing? It's that taking action piece that gets left out so often. And so habits is a piece that I love. I absolutely love, because habits lead to action. You can't pretty much have a habit that does not involve some sort of action. Now, obviously, as the habit becomes automatic and it moves from, your frontal lobe, your working memory to your long-term memory, there's components to that where the action doesn't take as much of your energy because you don't even think about it anymore, but it's still involved in action. And so putting in small, and that's the piece that I try so hard to teach others, because this idea of force, this idea of self-belief seems so challenging at times, so challenging I get it. This is so complex. This is so challenging. I don't even know where to start. And it's like, I got you, because it starts with habits. It starts with something small. I use the old adage of like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, because it literally is something small. You don't have to, and you can't expect, but you don't have to like flip a light switch and do this massive change to your life and then everything work out on the back end. It's little things, little habits that you build into your daily life that really make a massive difference. And I include quite a few of them in my book, like strategies and tools and different habits that you can use. But many of them are things like the words you use and catching yourself when you speak unkindly to yourself. Or I use one of the strategies that I use that I love. I call the have to get to shift of, instead of saying things, and this is always one I'm so guilty of, like, I have to go pick up my daughter today. Okay, well, let's start there. I get to go pick up my daughter today. I have a job where I can go pick her up from school. How many people don't have that opportunity? I have a daughter. How many people in this world, suffer from infertility, would give anything to have a child? She goes to a school where people love her and adore her. I have a car that can get me there. I have money to put fuel in the car. Like, there's the actual tangible, logical aspects of saying I get to instead of I have to are huge. And with little practice, I have shifted that mindset in my head because I have put that habit in my life, and I'll catch myself. And now the people around me will be like, oh, I have to. I get to. And I'm like, good, right? It's something so simple, but you create that habit and it helps you shift. It helps move you on that continuum of, what does this look like for me? And don't get me wrong, there are still some things in life I have to do. Like, I have to grade papers. I don't love grading papers. I love giving feedback. I love teaching. I don't love grading papers, but it's part of my job that I have to do to effectively teach my students. But recognizing the difference and recognizing what are the things in your life that you get to do. So that's just one example, but putting these tiny strategies, these tiny habits into your life that then help decrease the cognitive load for the things that do take so much more of your energy and do take so much more of your mental capacity, because you've created habits around them. There's so much good research from Charles Duhigg and Atomic Habits by James Clear, and habits are really something that we do not utilize well enough, I believe, in our lives, because they are a game changer.
Well, I've got an email going back and forth with Charles right now.
Nice.
He's got a new, actually the paperback of Super Communicators coming out, and he wanted to come on, and we're going to talk about a topic. He's my favorite
Love him.
Expert on habits. I really like your term, reducing the cognitive load. Your analogy right there in my book, What Drives You, the last chapter, we called it a bonus chapter. It's just that, Wendi. It's taking all the have tos and changing them to I'm going to, I get to, I want to. And even there, which I appreciate your analogy that you have to grade papers, though you obviously take that up. You have to. Why? Well, because you want your job. Why? Because you like it. So based on that, so here's what's the want? Under the want, what are the have tos? Okay, but they're because you want. If you didn't want the job, then you wouldn't have to grade papers. And but I like that, reducing the. I'm going to use that. I'll send you royalties on that. Reducing the cognitive load. I also like the habits aspect because you said, okay, we've got this knowledge, but what are you doing? And my mind right away went, because we are doing something. I remember I used to, back when it was actually before I was a pro cyclist, but I was living with a pro triathlete, Chucky V, pretty famous guy. And he had somebody kind of give him some constructive criticism because he was the big athlete, doing enormous amounts of activity every day. And he could, down a half gallon of ice cream, no big deal. And this guy was a doctor, and he says, yeah, but is that helping or hindering your goal? If your goal is to win, at the time he wanted to win Ironman Canada. And he says, is that helping, or would there be some other calories that might help better? Is it helping or hurting? If we look at everything, and it was really stark to me then because it changed his habits, and he went and won Ironman Canada from that. But your concept of what am I doing? Because I am doing something. My day today is full of habits, many of them unconscious. Are they helping my goals that we just talked about? My mindset, my identity, are my habits doing it? And now your next one then is energy. And I was interested by your kind of how you define that. What do you want to spend your time doing? Because I think most people think, well, isn't that habits? But you differentiate it. So do that for us.
Absolutely. And I love the example that you gave of your roommate. That's so fun because all of the things that we do are a choice. Whether it's we choose to do something or we choose not to do something, it's all a choice. So I can choose to take action and toward what I want, or I can sit on the couch and scroll through social media, still a choice. And so thinking about if I'm going to be doing things anyway, if I'm going to be expending energy anyway, what do I want to be using my energy towards? And I mentioned in the book, and I think it's important too, that there are two aspects of this. And I mentioned that a little bit earlier in our conversation, but part of it is, the energy that we get, as an introvert, and I'm probably more ambivert now than I am introvert, but it's all semantics, as we get into those layers. But as an introvert, I get my energy from time to myself. Now, that doesn't mean I don't love people, but people suck my energy. It takes a lot when I'm engaged in a large group of people and I'm talking and I'm socializing. And it's something that I have practiced largely in my life because as a speaker and as an educator, I can't be like, I'm just going to stand in the corner. And I don't want to be that person either. Back to identity. I don't want to identify as someone who's antisocial and just never likes to be around people. I love people, but people suck my energy. And so recognizing on days where I have to expend a significant amount of energy, giving myself grace, one, and then giving myself intentional time to refill. So you've got to find ways to refill. That's the first part of energy. And it also goes back to that mindset metabolism that I mentioned earlier is, what are you filling your mind with? What are you filling your force with? What are you filling your belief with? And then the other part of it is in where are you spending your energy? Because you want your energy to align with, what you want to believe about yourself and how you want to see yourself. And all of these things, like I mentioned before, they're almost a loop because you can't have one without the other, but there's not really an order to them. So the loop thing doesn't make sense. But where is your energy going? Yeah. Because again, it's going to be a choice. It's going to be a choice what you decide to do and what that looks like. And so having that intentionality behind, well, what do you really want to be doing? And are you doing things because you want to, or are you doing things because you feel like you have to? And there are things in life we have to do. You don't have it, like I mentioned that before, have to versus get to, right? There are things in life we do because we have to. But with the things that we do have control over, the things that we do have choice over, are we doing it, again, because it aligns? And paying really strong, intentional focus on our energy, where our energy comes from and where our energy goes. Because that is a piece that we ignore so often. But then there's also a lot of guilt around and recognizing, again, along that continuum, right? There are days where I do need to kick myself in the tush and get up off the couch or whatever that looks like, because I need to, like you said, yes, if I could eat a gallon of ice cream every day, that doesn't mean it's helping me. It doesn't mean it's helping me. So is my energy going toward the things that are helping me? But then there's also times where it's like, you know what? My energy right now needs to go to extra sleep. My energy right now needs to go to more time with my kid. My energy right now needs to go towards something that maybe is not, going to make me the most productive person, or it's not going to like help me win my triathlon, which by the way, so not my thing, but regardless, whatever that looks like, right? And so recognizing the spectrum that falls on and giving yourself grace, like I mentioned before, to stop for a second, reflect on where are you, what do you need at this point, and where should you be spending your energy? I use that should word, I shouldn't say that. Where do you need to be spending your energy? Instead of just going through day, checking off boxes, and you get to the end of the day and you're exhausted and you don't know where your time went or what you spent it doing.
I appreciate all that. I almost find myself continually hitting up against this with energy that I want to give it some categories or something, because just what you talked about, like, so let's just use this as an example. So here I am sitting with you, getting real, FaceTime virtually with you, talking about something that I feel, well, it matters to me. It matters to me. I'll be talking about this with my kids tonight at dinner and sharing this obviously with my audience. I inspire myself with this conversation. So my energy is up. I'm learning. I'm writing notes here as we talk. And so that's great. Now, and I will go recharge by myself. I'll go, and I may not even have time. I'll probably go from this to picking up kids and doing dinner, and then I'll go to bed, and I'll wake up tomorrow, and it'll be, okay, now I'm going to refresh my thoughts. And that's going to be where you said refill. That's where I'll refill. So does that mean my energy is draining right now? Well, some aspects of my energy are going up. But there's maybe some other aspect of energy I need to refill. So I don't know. It kind of goes along the introvert, extrovert, or ambivert, or whatever, that we can turn it on, turn it off. But there are aspects. I like that, though, instead of the polarizing of this gives me energy, this doesn't give me energy, and trying to understand that. So I appreciate the concept. So these components, you even say these are the 4 components. I actually wrote down your statement. These 4 components explain why we do or do not get what we want. They make up the force inside of us that transforms our lives by increasing our belief in ourselves and our ability to achieve what we want. Yeah. Okay, so here's what I found myself thinking about, Wendi, as an exercise that I'm going to do is take these areas, take your 4 components, mindset, identity, habits, and energy, and I could take those from an overall, what's the overall Kevin, the overall identity, the overall concept I want. But I found myself real quick thinking about the key areas of life. So I used to do the Ziglar Show. I was host of the Ziglar Show, and the Ziglar Wheel of Life has these 7 areas, and it's, finances and work and relationships and health and wellness and spirituality and your mental health and mental status, and do those with each of them. How do I want, what's my mindset with my health and wellness? And I can even separate that out, diet, nutrition, whatever. What is my mindset? And then how do I want to see myself? How do I want other people to see me? What then, are the habits? And then what am I going to be spending my time doing, that energy doing, and do them for each of those areas, as well as the overall thing of, if you go to a party, how do you want people to see you?
Right.
I want to get granular on those, because I think it kind of spawned. I probably got some areas where I'm just not clear. And if I'm not clear, then I'm not, kind of that thing. If I don't know the destination I'm going, how am I going to get there? So I'm going to play with it and get in specifics. I assume that's, you do that with students, clients, yourself, and get granular, especially on the areas where they're having challenges. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that you brought up a great point, Kevin, because we can't just combine everything into one category. That's making a huge gross generalization, right? If we're like, oh, if I only look at this, because we are a makeup of all of those things. And so there may be areas where it's like, my finances are good, or my relationships are good, or whatever those look like, but my health is poor. And to truly believe in myself as a whole, I need to intentionally focus on all those different aspects and get a handle on what that looks like. And I absolutely do that activity largely with my clients. but a little bit off and on with different belief strategies with my students, because we've got to stop. And I keep using that word intentionality, but I think that's the key piece, is taking time, giving ourselves time to really reflect on what this looks like in our life, because you can't have one without the other. Like, to truly shift your life, which is what all of this led from. I had a couple massive, changes in my life, and I wanted to shift. I was like, this is not serving me well.
Yeah.
This is not how I want to live my life. And I wanted to shift. And it wasn't an overnight thing. It's impossible. We're talking about our lives. We're talking about our past and our present and our future and all of the aspects that make us who we are. So it can't be simple, but recognizing that, how do you focus on each individual piece? Because for many of us, we don't even know, is that an area where I'm strong, or is that an area where I need a little more work because I've never thought about it. So I love that, Kevin. I've never thought about connecting it specifically with those Zigglers, but that makes complete sense, because that's who we are at our core. I mean, there's obviously some areas that people may include in there that are different, but we have the freedom to do that.
Well, and I thought in doing that and getting specific on that would probably help me as I look at the big picture, the aspect of myself in that. I did want to ask you this, belief is such a big part of your message, that when we look at believing in ourselves, do we even know ourselves? And I would say that in my past, I wasn't really aware of all the beliefs. I had these conscious ones, but I had plenty that were just adopted. I hadn't questioned them. I may not have fully been aware of them. So the awareness was one thing, like really getting clear on, okay, what am I going about life with these beliefs that are pretty much steering everything? Do I really believe these things? So that was the one, was awareness. The second thing that I continue to wrestle with is the conclusiveness that we tend to have with beliefs. And I read multiple areas in your book, Wendi, where I perceived you as, well, coming back to the continuum or the spectrum, that you tended to look at things as, I don't like the word flexible, but fluid. How about fluid and not fixed? And I'm playing with not claiming conclusive beliefs, even to the point of ridiculousness. Now, I'm pretty much a believer in gravity. And so I'm not going to walk off the edge of my, house today, though I've got friends and they might, with a bungee cord or with a hang glider or with one of these bat suits things or whatever, that even with this, concrete belief, I don't know what it matters sometimes, because people do with it different things based on how they perceive it. So I'm going to be today choosing in believing in gravity, not going to jump off my roof, not going to go hang gliding, not going to do one of the bat suits. There's a whole lot of knots in there. I may plummet down a hill at high speed on a mountain bike, because that's my thing. So I've got a relationship with gravity over there. I read about somebody recently who, I'm sure there's some phobia with gravity, whatever that term is, and wouldn't cross a bridge. I mean, they literally are not going to leave Earth. And then we're back to what you said in a couple ways of looking at it going, is that, my word is constructive? Is it productive? Oh, I know what it was. It was you talking about yourself with math, fixed mindset, growth mindset. And you said you like to think of yourself with growth mindset, but math, now you're okay with a fixed mindset that you just don't really care. We just resonate completely on that, because that's what I pay CPAs and bookkeepers and all those folks to do.
Exactly.
And having those things where we, well, I guess it still comes down to awareness. What's constructive? What's productive for me? Is this area where I'm making these lists? I think that's what brought me back to the Ziglar Wheel of Life. I want to look and go, okay, am I aware? What do I want to be intentional about? Does it feel constructive? And then we'll go on. So here it is today. Let's see if it pans out tomorrow. Yeah.
Right. No, and I love that, because I think it's also a piece of, there's so much misconception around belief and around, how we should show up in our lives or show up for others. And recognizing that where we are today is, a collection of so many things that we don't even realize. We've never paid attention to, we may never remember again. But celebrating where we are today, celebrating how you believe in yourself today, celebrating how you show up for yourself today, and then recognizing 5 years from now, that will hopefully look different. That will hopefully look different and hopefully be stronger and not weaker, right? But giving yourself permission to go, I'm not perfect today. There are areas in my life where I am a mess, if you want to use that term, or where I want to believe in myself more, or I want to be more productive, or I want to be stronger, or I want to be whatever, pick a word. But we are only in competition with ourselves, period. We are only in competition with ourselves. And so if we're taking those small actions, I am proud of myself for how I believe in myself today, how I showed up for myself today. And I hope tomorrow it's a little bit better. And I hope 5 years from now, it's a little bit better. And 10 years from now, it's a little bit better. And that's what I'm working toward. And am I going to have days where I completely fail? 100%. 100%. But what I love, and there's a ton of research on this, is recognizing that and very much also the habit research of when you start working towards something. If you have a day where you just completely fall off the wagon, you completely don't do your habit, or you talk to yourself terribly, or whatever that looks like, you're not starting over tomorrow. And you have not lost all of the progress you've made. You have not removed all of the knowledge and the skills and the tools that you've gained up to that point. You're just starting tomorrow from where you are. You're not starting over. And realizing the impact that has on your life and who you are and who you want to be. So tomorrow, if I have a terrible day from a mindset perspective or a self-belief perspective, then giving myself grace to go, you know what? Then the next day is going to be better. And the day after that's going to be better. I'm not starting over. I'm not in this downward spiral of why do I even bother? I try so hard. It never works out. Like that's going to get me nowhere. So instead, recognizing I'm not starting over. Today was just not my best day. And tomorrow I am going to celebrate the progress that I've made. And that's the piece. If there's any message throughout my entire book, I hope it's that of this is where you should be, or why are you not here? Or, you have so many blessings in your life. How dare you not believe in yourself? But you are where you are today. Celebrate and be proud of who you are today, and continue to grow every day as you can with the tools and strategies that either you learn from my book, or you learn from listening to our talk today, or you learn from yourself and your own life experiences, because only you know what you need, and only you know where you are and where you want to go. And so giving yourself the ability and the permission to move forward and take action as such.
I perceive the power in your title, Force Continuum, and yet I experience it as a compassionate look at mindset. And just, again, that's why you're here. I appreciate your perspective on it, your structure, and the action aspect of it as well, I think is highly needed amongst our concepts that we bring forth to people, and showing them, as you said, how to do it. This is how we get the what and the why, but the actual how. So Wendi, thanks. It's a gift to me. You've helped me evolve myself and my concepts and perspectives around this. And it'll be good dinner table discussion with my kids tonight as well, and honored to bring it out to the audience. So I just appreciate what you have done to bring the book forth and come out of just the classroom and the clientele so that I can benefit from it and share it with others as well. So thank you, and thank you for the time and this show today.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate you, and this has been amazing talk. I love when we can really find ways to build ourselves up, and then turn around and, like we said, add value to one another, and then add value to the people that are listening to this message. So I thank you, and I thank your audience, and this has been an absolute joy today.
Well, you've added value to me. Thank you.
Same. Thank you.
Well, thanks for joining us in this discussion. That, again, is Dr. Wendi, Wendi Zimmer. And the book that was my muse as we walk through this is called Force Continuum: How to Shift Your Mindset to Transform Your Life. Of course, you can find the book anywhere and connect with Dr. Wendi Zimmer, just type that in and you will find her. Appreciate you joining us today. You got any questions, comments on this, just send me an email, kmiller@kevinmiller.co. Until next time, here is to the evolving you.
Yeah.